Initial meeting with John back in 1957?
My initial meeting, well, we were students in the art college, and he was doing his thing and I was doing my thing, and John was very undisciplined, let's put it that way. He didn't like to be told what to do. He was, as I said, an enigma. He had his own dreams, his own ideas, and there was a certain point after 2 years when we all had to take a certain course, and because none of the tutors wanted John,
He was a little bit of a rebel.
They actually couldn't find a place to put him, so they put him in a lettering class, which I, as a student, wanted desperately to do. I was a very keen student from a little girl. I wanted to be an artist and an art teacher. So I got to this point where I was doing my thing with all my neat pencils, pens, brushes, rulers and everything, and this man comes in, or this boy comes in with his guitar slung over his shoulders, with no glasses on. And I think, oh my goodness, you know, what am I doing here in this situation? So he arrives in the class that we are in, and the reason we met was because we were both blind without our glasses. And we had a test of looking at letters on the board and everything. And he kept pinching all my pens and brushes and everything. So it was a very strange meeting. That's how we first met, was through the fact that neither of us could see, and we were both too vain to wear glasses.
So you're all in the front part of the classroom, so you can see what was going on. Yes. That's something. Cynthia is touring the world right now with the lithographic version of this, which is a beautiful piece of art. $7,500. You have a chance to have that kind of a look up on your wall, a bit of real history. I mean, in that classic Liverpudlian sense of humor, John, Paul, George, and Harold signed this right down there. Maybe at this point in time, maybe Ringo, because I mean Richard Starkey being Israeli, maybe this time he was just saying, you know, I'm not Ringo, but I'm not Richard either. I'm Harold. Today I'm Harold, and who knows what.
But everybody will know at the end of the day.
Indeed.
No problem.
Indeed they will. The colors, the style of this is so perfect for your home decor right now, because the 60s retro look is in big time. If you hire one of those fancy schmancy snooty decorators, they'll come in and just want to put your home completely awash in the 60s. 20 by 30 inches, you will get a certificate of authenticity attesting to the fact that you are getting a poster of a piece of art created by all 4 Beatles. Something that you'll be able to share with your children, something you'll be able to chat with your friends about. I imagine quite a great conversation starter with folks.
Yes, it's evocative of the 60s, and it's a great memory piece. It's a great, that's all I can say. It's a memory of those days, and even if you weren't young in those days, it makes you feel young anyway.
It does for a fact. For speaking of the 60s, you're married to John in 62 in one of, now people would say, oh, in 62, well, things, you know, his career was starting to move ahead just a little bit, and they think he had a big, fancy, hoop-de-doo wedding, and it was a very unconventional ceremony, and noisy.
It was hysterical, actually. I was thinking about it last night, you know, after our conversation yesterday, and I was thinking it was probably the most bizarre weddings that you could possibly imagine, and I was thinking I must wear something old, new, borrowed, and blue, and I had Astrid Kirchner's, who was Stuart Sutcliffe's girlfriend. I had a blouse that she gave me, I had an old blue suit, I had all sorts of things, but it was a very low-key wedding, and the strange thing was that we married in the same place that John's mother and father married, which was a registry office. But as we walked in, it was like a funeral, because the boys, there was George, Paul, Brian, they all had black suits on and black ties on, and they were giggling all the time, and outside there was a man on a pneumatic drill. So the whole of the ceremony couldn't be heard. It was unbelievable.
Oh boy,
But it was lovely because it was memorable. It was.
Well, it's nothing
out
you would
of the ordinary.
You would forget. I can see it now with the pneumatic drill going on in the ambience of things. Concerning the poster, now, since this was done, I mean, you can see so much of the Sgt. Pepper's influence in this, so much of that look, and of course the album broke so much new artistic ground. Really, the first true concept album, Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys, had been hinting in that direction. This was the first album where there was a definite logic and flow, and where everything, actually the first album where they ever printed the lyrics to the songs on the back of the album, so people would know exactly what was going on. What were some of John's feelings? What was going on with him during this whole period?
Well, John obviously was, I mean, in the early days with the Beatles, they spent so much time on the road and so much time being involved and being surrounded in life. But at this particular point, they were tailing off. They had more time because John had done How I Won the War, the film, on his own.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they were tailing off into individuals. And it's hard to express, for me to express, because, you know, I'm not a musician, I'm an artist. But it's hard to actually say what they felt and how they were at the time. But I really believe that it was a period of changing from boyhood to manhood, changing sense of direction in life. It was a crossroads in life. And this was the peak of what they did at that time.
It's such a beautiful work. This is its worldwide debut. It measures 20 by 30 inches on acid-free recycled stock. And the acid-free is important. That means decades from now, this is still going to be a fine, fine-looking piece of art up on your wall. And so, I loved your phrase, it's so evocative of the 60s. It just brings that period. It's sort of like, it's almost everything of the 60s. It's a microcosm of what was happening in the 1960s.
But it's so sweet. It's so sweet and so naive.
Innocent.
And what has happened since, you know, it's very sad. It's, you know, it's what has happened since sort of has spoiled to a certain extent the feelings of the 60s. But this, to me, when I look at it, you know, just reminds me of the fun and the joy and the madness of it all. And that's all that matters, really. We should go back to those,
to the simpler,
spiritually, to those days when we were young and we were adventurous and the challenges were there.
Hopefully that we'll see a lot of that happening. Now, through the years, of course, you're a fine artist and writer in your own right with the book A Twist of Lennon, which was a wonderful work. And of course, you and John giving birth to I think one of the most talented rock and rollers of the 1980s and 1990s, Julian. And I understand Julian has a new album coming out in a few months?
Yes, well, I would say about 6 months.
6 months? Okay.
It's virtually finished. It's in the process, and it's very beautiful.
That's exciting.
I'm his worst critic and his, you know, his best mother. but at the end of the day, I would say that the music on his new album is beautiful.
That is going to be something.